we are going to test this Asus P4P800SE socket 478 motherboard from 2004. Now this is going to be just a rough balls to the wall, on the floor bench test. I'm just going to have the motherboard sitting here on the floor. Now obviously I need a power supply to power it. Now my plan was to use the power supply out of the Dell Inspiron 530 to test this thing, but I opened the Dell and prepared to take out the power supply, and I discovered that the Dell is actually not based on ATX architecture. It's Dell proprietary motherboard and a Dell proprietary power supply. So that is too bad, because it also means I can't upgrade the power supply in the Dell, which will limit my video card opportunities possibly. So I've got this power supply. This is an ATX power supply. What's it even rated for? I don't even know. 250 watts. Well, that should be enough. Now, where did I get this power supply from? Well, if you look right here, spoiler alert, this is another computer I've never shown you guys. I got it in the beginning of summer from my friend David, and what's it been now, like 8 months since I got that computer, and I've still never filmed a video of it, but I will sometime. Anyway, this is the power supply from that, and it's ATX. Now unfortunately this power supply is literally a ticking time bomb. The computer was made during the height of the capacitor plague, and about half of the capacitors in this power supply are blown up. So it still works, but this thing literally could blow at any time, and I know firsthand that when power supplies blow, it's usually detrimental to the rest of the computer. But this is all I have that's appropriate to test this board, so hopefully it works for this test. So yeah, we can hook that up. For a video card, I've got my ATI Rage 128 Pro AGP video card from around, I think, 1999 this thing was made. Yep, 1999. Now, someone expressed concern that this card would not work with this motherboard, because the motherboard would most likely support 1.5 volt AGP cards, and this card would most likely be a 3.3 volt AGP card. And that's true, this motherboard only supports 1.5 volt cards, but if you look at this card, it's got 2 notches in the connector. This is a universal card. It supports both 3.3 volts and 1.5 volts. And that's why this card is such a wonderful test card, because it'll work on any AGP slot. So we'll stick that in there, and that'll be our video. I've got a PS2 keyboard, and I've got a monitor. Now for the heatsink, first of all I should say, thank you guys. You guys are awesome. You gave me some really helpful information regarding the heatsink for this thing. Basically, to summarize what you guys told me, and you know, I should have known, but it kind of surprised me. Both of those heat sinks that I grabbed, neither of those heat sinks are for socket 478. They are both for different sockets. And the black plastic piece that I thought went to that bigger heat sink, which I thought went to this motherboard, actually goes to the smaller heat sink. And then that metal X-shaped thing is actually an LGA 775 backplate. And it's really funny because, you know, when I got this board, there was really wet heatsink compound on the processor and really wet heatsink compound on the larger heatsink. So it's obvious that someone tried to attach that heatsink to this motherboard, even though it's a completely inappropriate heatsink. Silly art student. But anyway, yeah, so that large heatsink and the LGA 775 bracket, I just threw them back in the box. I did keep this smaller heatsink because I'm actually going to use this as to serve as a heatsink for this thing for this test. I've taken some aluminum foil and folded it into whatever you'd call this, and that'll go right there, and that'll just serve to help transfer the heat between the processor and the heatsink, making sure there's no gap, since this will just be lying on top of the processor basically. Now, back before the first time I ever played with a Pentium 4 computer, I figured, you know, like other platforms, that you could test a motherboard without a heatsink if you have to. The processor would remain cool for a few minutes at least. But no, that's not the case at all. These Pentium 4s, especially the Prescott, get so hot that I had to deal back in high school. I had to fix someone's computer once, and it was a Pentium 4 system, and this retention bracket here was broken, and so the heatsink wasn't making contact with the CPU. And when you turned on the computer, the processor got so hot so quickly that it actually didn't make it to post. It would crash before it posted. It, like, literally within like 2 seconds the processor would be overheating. That's crazy. But indeed, that's how these Pentium 4 processors are. So I'm going to use a heatsink. I'm going to have that like that. And then this thing, I'll just lie down like that. Yeah, that's good. And I'll plug the fan in like that. And there's our RedNet cooling setup. I'll hook the power supply up, and I'll hook the video card up, and I'll hook the monitor and keyboard up, and we'll see if this thing blows up. Now, it's funny because I mentioned that this was a very popular board back in its time, and indeed it was. However, it was actually a problematic board. These suffered from a manufacturing defect, actually a pretty serious one, in which static electricity, if static discharge, made its way to the board, it would very often actually destroy the Intel South Bridge. And sometimes when that happened, it would only the only effect of it would be that the front USB connectors wouldn't work anymore, so you'd lose your front USB if you had it connected. And if that was the case, then the board would keep working. But other times it would destroy the South Bridge completely and the motherboard would become unusable. And sometimes when that happened, of course, when the South Bridge, once it was destroyed, it would short out, and it would actually draw so much current from the power supply that it would heat up, and it would get so hot that this ceramic die, or whatever you'd call it here, would actually start crumbling apart, like chalk. And apparently there were some cases where this happened, and the South Bridge got so hot that it actually ignited the surrounding part of the motherboard. So yeah, these were, it's a really bad defect. If you Google Asus P4P800 ICH5, you'll get a lot of responses about that. Now, with that being said, this thing has this thing had like 400 reviews on Newegg, and out of those 400 reviews, like 380 of them were 5-star. So I would think, going by that it actually wasn't a very common problem, but based on what I've said, people have said that it was. It plagued these motherboards bad. In fact, I remember an account from one guy. He went through 4 of these motherboards in 2 weeks. He bought one, and the South Bridge fried. He got a replacement, and then that fried. And he went through 3 replacements, 4 boards total, before he just gave up and chose a different board. So, yeah, definitely is a problem. But depending on where you look, it might or might not be that common. Regardless, I hope this board does not suffer that. So I'm going to put everything back together here, and then we'll come back. Alright, we're all hooked up. The last thing I got to hook up is power to the power supply, and God, I hope that power supply doesn't blow up. And I also hope this motherboard works. Now, hopefully it'll come on when I apply power. If not, I'll have to get a pair of pliers and figure out where the power switch pins are and short them out. But let's see what we get. Okay, power supply is connected. We've got standby power. So I gotta get pliers and figure out where the power switch pins are. Power switch. Evidently those 2 pins where that silk screen is. Alright, let's see if I can do this. Hope it's these 2 pins. Oh, hey, now do we have post? It's not looking like it. Well, I'm an idiot, because that's clearly a Pentium 4 power connector. I looked all through this board and I never found it. So, there's that. Maybe that'll bring it to life, and luckily this power supply has the connector for it. Alright, let's try that again. And hope for better results. Oh, the keyboard blinked. I don't think it did that before. I don't think we have video still though. Dang it. Alright, I took one stick of RAM out. Unfortunately, all three of the sticks of RAM in there are from different brands, and one's a different speed. That's the one I took out, so I don't know. I see that the slots are color-coded. I don't know if that means it always needs two. It can't run with just one stick. I don't know, but I'll try it with two here. And it's not looking good. Alright, I've just got one stick of RAM in there. The keyboard blinks. Hey! Oh, sweet. Oh my god. You know, I was getting ready to call this motherboard a lost cause. Something made a chirping noise I didn't like. I hope it wasn't that power supply. Nope. It just shut right off. Why? That was strange. Let me try that again. Was it supposed to do that? I need to change my camcorder battery. Okay, let's try this crap again. It's looking promising now. Let me see if I can get into the BIOS. Is it delete? Delete. Oh, I didn't like that. That was a high-pitched whine from something. And it just shut off. Why is that? What's making it shut off? Is the processor overheating? Is my redneck cooling not working? I'm gonna investigate. Alright, I'm not sure what's going on with this thing. I checked the processor. It was hot, but not blistering hot. It was just kind of warm. So I don't think it was overheating, but I honestly don't know. That it definitely could be. Like I said, the last time I worked on a Pentium 4 system, it had botched cooling, and the processor literally overheated before the system even posted. I'll try one more time. And something's making a high-pitched squealing noise. Something on the motherboard or something on the power supply, and I don't like that. F1 to run setup. Hey! I wonder if there's a... It's gotta be overheating. That's gotta be it. Okay, that's definitely it. The processor's overheating. A hair from something got on it, and I can smell that hair burning. So we gotta figure out a new cooling solution. I don't know what that'll be, though. If this didn't work, what could? Is aluminum not a good heat transfer metal? I have no clue myself. Alright, hashtag Pentium 4 problems. I'm going to try having the power supply directly on top of the processor. Maybe in the BIOS I can get to a thing that'll tell me the CPU temperature. Hardware monitor. 57, wait, 43. 43 degrees. Still running. Okay, that's good. 44. And it's staying on. We're working. Boys and girls, we have a good motherboard, I'd say. Have to test the front USB to tell for sure. By gosh, she's working though. Oh man. How's our voltages? Our shit power supply. Now they're looking normal actually. 45 degrees. Okay, she's holding. She's holding just fine. Sweet. We have a good motherboard. With possibly a bad RAM stick. I'll have to investigate that further. You know what I should do? I should connect a CD-ROM drive up to this. Do I have one lying around? Well, I can grab one anyway. Connect a CD-ROM drive to this, and let's boot Linux off a CD. I haven't done that in years and years. Let's give that a shot. Alright, we got a DVD ROM drive hooked up, and I'm also going to try another stick of RAM, and we're also going to test this Mitsumi PS2 optical mouse, and for an old school motherboard we're going to try old school Linux. I've got a Ubuntu 6.06 2006 version, so we'll see if this thing works. Hopefully it boots with that extra stick of RAM. And it looks like it's gonna. Sweet. Oh, sweet. Well, everything's working. When I last put the camera down and this thing was still running, just as a test, I just lifted the heatsink off of the processor, and immediately within like 2 seconds the temperature jumped from 45 degrees to like 80 degrees. That's how bad these Pentium 4s are for heat. Now on the lighter end of things, this cooler works exceptionally well. It's too bad it's not for the right socket. It does an excellent job. If I was more ambitious, I would try and redneck it on there, but I really don't want to. It's not worth the bother. Turn the light out here. That's better. Hey, our mouse works. Sweet. My god, the things people throw away. Perfect motherboard, perfect mouse. Yeah, it's complaining because the clock's not set. Okay. We are running. Oh man, I haven't used this in so many years. I haven't touched Linux in years and years. System monitor. Alright. Oh, you know what? This is all I need to see. It's quite clear that everything works. That's awesome. Well guys, I think that's all I need to show here. I guess the DVD drive. Oh, there we go. I think that's all I need to show here. It's quite clear that this motherboard seems to work perfect, and that's super awesome. And the mouse works perfect. A PS2 optical mouse, so nice. Does the right click work? Yep, right click works. Sweet. So here's my next steps, and this isn't probably going to happen in the near future. It's probably going to be months, if not years, down the road. First, I need to find a case to use this motherboard in. Next, I will need to find a heatsink, of which there are plenty on eBay. I can get a heatsink for about $10 shipped. Then I'd need a power supply. I would probably buy that new, probably an Antec VP450 or something like that. At that point, it'll be a perfectly usable computer. And then after that, I'd upgrade the processor. I'd get a 3.4 gigahertz hyper-threader. I'd get 4 gigs of RAM. And I'd get a really good AGP video card. And then what I'll actually do with this machine, I don't know. I imagine the brunt of the fun will be actually putting it together. It would be the first custom-built computer that I've ever built, and I've always wanted to build specifically a Pentium 4 machine. There's just something I love about the Pentium 4. I don't know if it was its longevity, being manufactured from 2001 to 2008. I don't know, but there's just some mystique about a Pentium 4 system that I just really love. So yeah, I don't know when I'll ever get to it, but I hope eventually to get to building a computer based on this motherboard. It'll be absolutely awesome. And oh, also, I found that there's a guy on eBay that actually sells the I/O plate specifically for this motherboard. I can get that for $8 shipped. So that's pretty nice, so I'd definitely get one of those. And yeah, that's about it. I'm really glad this thing works. Very, very happy. So there you go, guys. There's a test of the Asus model P4P800SE socket 478 Pentium 4 motherboard from 2004. Very nice. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good night. And finally, I could not believe this when I found these things. 2 HP iPac Pocket PCs. How about that? I could not believe it when I found these. Alright, now we're put back together and running, so let's check out the menu settings. The printer, of course, gives you full control over all of the print settings and settings to do with how the printer processes print jobs and